welcome to What's Happening Now on KBLKradio.com, and thank you for tuning in. This is your host, Bishop Bowser, and we have a good show for you this morning. We have Miss Janet Douglas and Miss Rachel Wolford, and our topic is a tale of motherhood from a black woman's perspective. And you know, we got a lot to talk about on that. But before we get the talk, there's a few things I want to share with you. And this takes us all the way back to the 60s. And this was about 53 years ago. Malcolm X stated that the black woman was the most disrespected, unprotected, and neglected among women in America. His statements still hold true today. Now let's look at that. You know, number one, disrespected. Black women and girls in the U.S. are disproportionately targeted and used by sex traffickers operating inside the U.S. Service providers that assist women and girls to escape prostitution in cities throughout the U.S. report that their client population has proportionately more racial minorities than their city's population. According to the FBI, for arrests under the age of 18, black children make up 55% of all prostitution-related arrests in the U.S. More than any other racial group. From what is known of arrest practices, these figures most likely represent mostly black girls. So then, in 1999, the Chicago Police Department arrested 5,437 women and girls for prostitution. 75% of them were black women. Prostituted women and girls live lives of unlimited exposure. They are exposed to constant harassment and degradation, of verbal assaults, to conditions of the weather, to malnutrition, homelessness, disease, incarceration, sleep deprivation, mental illness, physical and sexual abuse, torture, and murder. There is no safety or comfort in sleeping or waking hours. Drug and alcohol abuses provide fleeting moments of escape, only to become addictions that magnify the horror in which they are trapped. Black women and girls who suffer unspeakable violence as a matter of daily life, who suffer distortions of mind and spirit beyond comprehensions. Are our friends, sisters, mothers, daughters, and ourselves when we talk about these black women and black children? Under the official poverty measure, women's poverty rates have a larger spread, indicating greater inequity among the poverty rates of the different racial ethnic groups. These poverty rates range from 10.9% for white women to 29.2% for black women. In addition, black women confront the worst relationship market of any group of economic and cultural forces that is not their making. And because most black women are limited to marrying black men, it has worsened the situation. Because black men are in short supply, their options are better than those of black women. Talking about black men. Now, being neglected. A desirable black man who ends a relationship with one woman will find many others waiting. That's not so for black women. In Cook County, Illinois, 21% of black men had at least two partners, and polygamy is more common among better educated black men who presumably have more income. Black women lead by far the most segregated lives the most segregated lives of all women, women that, whether it's Hispanic, white, and so on. They are less than half as likely as black men to wed across racial lines. Numerous studies of internet dating confirm that black women are the partners least desired by non-black men. When black women do marry, they are more likely than any other group of women to earn more than their husbands, even as divorce rates have declined for most groups during the past few decades. More than half of black marriages end in divorce. Marriage is a matter of love and commitment, but it's also an exchange. Black women outnumber men 2 to 1 in graduating. Nearly 2 million black men are either currently in prison or have been in one. 17% of black men have had prison experience compared to 7.7% of Hispanics and 2.6% of whites. 40% of the prison population is black men. A black man without a job or the likelihood of landing one cannot offer a woman enough to make that exchange worthwhile. It's been a long night for black mothers. Night is depicted by adversity or misfortune, disappointment or letdown, despair or hopelessness, confusion or disorder, trials and sufferings, ignorance and helplessness. This is a time of darkness for black mothers. 85% of our children live in a home without their fathers. 65% of never married black women have children. 70% of professional black women never marry. And 72% of all black children are born out of wedlock. When our young black men are killed, it is the black mother who suffer the brunt of that loss and have to carry the burden of bearing her son, brother, uncle, boyfriend, or husband. Our black mothers are weeping for their children. From 1999 to 2009, among those aged 15 to 34 years, there were 106,271 homicides. 85%, that's 89,887 among men, and 49% of that, that's 52,265 of the 89,000 were black men. So according to the CDC, homicide was indeed the #1 killer of young black men between the ages of 15 and 34 in 2011. 40% of African American males 15 to 34 who died were murdered. That's 40%. According to the CDC, compared to just 3.8% of white males who died. Overall, 14% of all men 15 to 34 who died in 2011 were murdered. In 2011, black males 15 to 34 were 10 times more likely to die of murder than whites of the same age group. Homicide was not one of the top 15 causes to die of murder for whites 15 to 34. Excuse me. If we care about the plight of the black family, and more specifically, the struggling and wounded black mother, we must demand that necessary resources be brought into our community to address poverty, the public health crisis, and the disparity in our social structures. Over 80% of long-term child poverty occurs in broken or never married homes. 85% of black children in poverty live in single-parent, that's mother-child homes. These factors contribute to the poverty problem that we have in the black community. Jody Patterson said, and I quote, "Black mothers are real women with a vision for their families. We see ourselves as hardworking, loving, and intuitively smart. We are protective of our families. We are explorers of the world. I can't give you any words how society sees us, but I can write a book about how we feel, and that may or may not be in line with society. The most important answer to that is, how do we see ourselves?" End of quote. So then, black mothers are devoted, playful, serene, joyful, capable, present, and wise. Having said that, I want to bring into our discussion and introduce to you Miss Douglas and Miss Wolford. Welcome to What's Happening Now, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, I want to ask both of you, Miss Douglas and Miss Rachel, I want to ask both of you a question. How many children do each of you have? And Miss Wolford, you can tell me first, and then Miss Douglas second.
I have 4 children, 1 girl and 3 boys.
How old are they?
My daughter is the oldest. She's 32. I have a son who's 29. I have another son that's 26 and another son that's 25.
All right. Miss Douglas.
I had 4 children. I have 3 boys, 2 boys now, and 1 girl. And my baby is 50, and Kenny is 52, and Anthony is 54.
Okay. So, We're going to go to a break, but I want to read you an article, well, we still got about 5 more minutes then, but I want to read you an article, and then I want to ask you a question about this, because you said you have 4 kids, but now you have 3, so that means you lost 1.
Yes.
And I want to talk about that for a brief moment, but I want to read an article that I read, and this article is out of the Los Angeles Times, and it's dated May 20th, 1988. And the title of this news article is entitled, and I quote, "Policeman Slaying of Narcotic Suspect is ruled excusable." And here's what the article says, and I quote, "The slaying of a drug suspect who was shot in the back of the head by a police officer after a foot chase earlier this year has been ruled an excusable homicide by the district attorney's office. A report released Thursday said there's absolutely no evidence that Douglas' unfortunate death was other than the result of sheer accident. Police have said all along that Johnny O. Douglas, 29, of San Diego, was shot accidentally March 6 by Officer Stephen Hutchinson at the culmination of a chase down a dark alley. He was shot once as the undercover officer was attempting to force him to the ground." And we should take special note that the officer that shot and killed Johnny Douglas, which they say by accident, he was a black police officer. So, Miss Douglas, as a mother, can you share with us your feelings on losing a son to violence?
I never had a chance to grieve over my son because I was at church and they came to my church and they got me out of church. And I went straight to UCSD hospital. And when I got to the hospital, I was just shocked. There was about 400 young people out there. Mm-hmm. And I went to the other side and there were so many people out there, I had to just throw my hands up and pray for them and quiet them down because the police had their dogs and they was laughing. And it was nothing funny about my son being dead. I told him I will find out about my son. And I asked him just to be quiet and let me run up in the operating room because I was a custodian there and I had just left maybe an hour before this happened. Mm-hmm. I took out and ran upstairs. It was a certain way I could go. And when I got upstairs, they told me there was nothing going on, that my son was dead. And I had to turn around and run right back down where all the people were and tell them, let them know. I told them my son was dead. Mm-hmm. Some tried to grab me by the hand to comfort me, but I couldn't let them comfort me. I had to get down being concerned about other mothers' children out there. When you got about 400 out there and these dogs, wild dogs and everything, and the police officer laughing, it wasn't nothing funny about it. Wow. But I found out, I investigated, wasn't too long after that, and I went where my son was killed, and my son, they were walking him, it was on 25th, and walking him back, and there was a mailbox, and it hit him in the face, right at his eye, and that's when his head tilted back, and
so, Ms.
hit the gun.
We're going to take a break, so I want you to hold your thought right there, and we're going to pick up when you come back. But we're going to take a brief break, so we want you to stay tuned to what's happening now on KBLKradio.com. This is your host, Bishop Bowser, and we'll be right back in 2 minutes, so stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned to what's happening now on KBLKradio.com. This is your host, Bishop Bowser, and we thank you for staying tuned. And we have with us Miss Douglas and Miss Wolford, and Miss Douglas was just speaking to us about her son, Johnny O. Douglas, who was killed in March of 1988 at the age of 29 years old, and she was sharing with us how that they said it was an accident. She did her own investigation and found out that when they chased him down, he had a mark on the side of his eye.
Yes, on his left side, a cut.
Uh-huh. And what did that
hit the mailbox, and I went down with a friend of mine, and I noticed Stacy was the same height my son, and he almost got hit his eye, not looking the mailbox, but then they removed the mailbox right away after my son's death. So it was neglect on the police department, San Diego police, and I know all polices are not bad, and but when they do the wrong job, they should be punished for what they did. And I never would get on the radio and talk. I was too hurt to talk. It taken me years. I could not grieve because I was concerned about everybody else's children. I had to get on my telephone, call my sister to come out and help me to escort and get people away from the hospital. But the police just laughed at us, and they would come by the house, and some of them just look and laugh. And I just thank God because I had 2 more boys, and they did very well.
Right.
They did. Kenny Douglas did very well. Anthony Douglas did very well. I was just so proud, and I praise God for him.
Now, one of the questions that I want to ask you is, since the accident happened, well, saying the death of your son, did you sue the city of San Diego Police Department for taking your son's life?
I did not have the knowledge of how to do anything. I had rental property. I could have taken out a loan, but being uneducated and not knowing what I was doing, I did not sue, and my grandbabies did not get anything. His daughter, and his son, they were just babies, and so everything was just covered up.
Yeah, and we're gonna move on, but I do want to acknowledge that you did bring your granddaughter with you in the studio, and that's Leanne Raymond. And did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And this is Johnny O. Douglas' daughter. And how old are you now?
35.
35. And now you went to college, got your degree in what was it again?
So I went to college for 4 years and obtained my bachelor's in criminal justice.
All right. So let me ask you a question in regards to the statute of limitations and things like that. Is there any possible way of your understanding of the law and things like that, that even though it's been that long, it's a murder, there's no statute of limitations, what do they call it when somebody died, homicide, and it's cold case, there's no statute of limitations, right?
There's no statute of limitations for criminal charges to be filed, but there is a statute of limitations in civil litigation, so that would have expired by now.
Right. See, by the time you got old enough to really understand it's too late. They should change or make the law to where that children who are too young at that time to take any action can give them certain time, after a certain age, hey, you can pursue this and so on, because it just seems totally unfair to you have to grow up without a father, and you to grow up without to live life without a son.
I would love to see him have a statue for that, a limitation, because his kids had to go through so much coming up, and I would pick them up and do whatever I could, but I just didn't have the money.
Yeah. Now let me ask you another question. Did the city of San Diego apologize for the accident?
Nobody. They didn't come to my house. They did not come back in them days. And when we had problems, you couldn't call the police. You called the fire department. The kids would call them out because they come out there and beat them up.
So I want to ask one more question, then I'll get to you, Miss Wolford. All that you've been through, what do you see as some of the greatest challenges facing black moms today? I mean, that has to be a great challenge to lose a son to violence and to bury a son. I bring you in because we have a lot of mothers that are losing their children, whether it's to police violence or to black on black crime or whatever it may be, to bad health. We're losing a lot of our children. What kind of what are the greatest challenges you think black moms face today, and what advice can you give them?
I just don't have no idea. I think we have to be more like about in the community trying to help each other, you know, and
Right.
the children, because I've gone up to schools and I see babies walk in the schools by themselves. And I just don't know. You have to get them involved. You have to get them involved early, you know, and take them to church. And that's that's my goal, is to start trying to work with the kids and help them out, help these mothers that need help with them.
Right.
I don't know, with our kids killing each other,
Right.
it just doesn't matter now. I think maybe they just think people don't care. I don't know.
Okay, and so we're going to get back. We're going to have a discussion on this, but I want to get to Miss Wolford. And Miss Wolford, what kind of work you do right now?
Right now, I'm unemployed.
Okay.
I was working last year. I worked with San Diego Youth Service for the last 6 years.
Oh, okay.
And as a family support partner. And my job was to go into the homes and to try to help keep the families together rather than keeping them apart.
Right.
And I also would go to the juvenile halls as well.
All right.
And try to talk with some of the younger kids to try to keep them on track. And I still do that, as although I'm not working,
Right.
I still kind of strive to help kids when I see them
Right.
going in the wrong direction.
Right. And so before that 6 years of working with doing youth services, what did you do before that?
Prior to that, I worked at National Rental Car when I came home from prison. I worked at National Car Rental. The day, it was just unfortunately that I was blessed that the day I came home, I got off the flight and I took the bus to National Rental Car and I just applied for an application. I mean, I filled out the application, and the next week I had got hired.
Wow.
But I truly believe that I got hired because it was just an incident that on the application, you know how you put on there, it asks, have you ever been arrested? And I was so scared, I just left it blank. But I really believe that that's how I got the job, by leaving it blank.
Right. So now I want to back up a little bit because I'll go back some more, because you said when you worked for the rental car company, you had gotten out of prison.
Right.
And so you have been to prison.
Yes, I did 10 years in prison. Unfortunately, you know, my kids had to be raised by my sister. And, you know, that was the hardest thing for me because of some of the choices I made. But, you know, I just kind of, it starts from, you know, coming from a home raised with my mom and my dad, which my dad was always away in the military. My mom, you know, she did the best she could with a second grade education. So it was hard, but you know, it was a struggle, and I kind of just, like I said, veered off because I got with the wrong crowd.
Now, what year did you go to prison, and what year did you get out?
I went to prison in I was arrested in 1987, and I got out in 1991.
Okay. Wait a minute, say that again.
I wanted
2001.
No, 1990, 80, it was 89, actually 89,
Okay.
I'm sorry, and got out in 1991.
That's on.
I'm sorry, 97, I'm sorry.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry,
there you go,
97,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
February of 1997.
So they gave you 10 years, you did.
And I did 8 years and 6 months on that 10.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay. And so you saying when you got out, where did you fly from?
I flew from Dublin, California, and I took a shuttle bus to National, and I filled out an application.
Wow.
And I want to say about a week later, I had got a call for an interview, and I did the interview, and I got hired, and I worked there for 5 years.
Right. So I'm trying to understand. You telling me the first day you got out of prison, you applied for that job?
Yes.
Wow. What was going in your mind during that time? I would get me a job here.
I knew, you know, having my children, because not only that, I also had a baby in prison. And
oh, did you?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it was the most horrible feeling for a mother, because I remember that they came and got me. They shackled me. They shackled me to the bed. And I remember one of the nurses saying, "Can you just let her, be free?" And I stayed in labor for 22 hours. And I was handcuffed to the bed. I gave birth. After I gave birth, I was immediately sent back to the prison with no ties to my son at all.
Wow.
And he went and his dad came and picked him up.
Wow. Now, how many months were you pregnant when you were arrested?
I didn't even realize I was pregnant.
Wow.
I found out through a blood test.
Okay.
And they told me that, you're pregnant, and they shipped me on to prison. And I waited out the term of my pregnancy and had my son.
Wow.
In which, it was hard because we never was able to have a relationship.
And that bond.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you have any, when he was born, did he go to your sister also?
No, he was with his dad.
Oh, that's right. You said his dad. And so, and how old is he now?
He's 26.
26. And what kind of relationship you guys have now?
We have a better relationship now, but I just feel like with some of his struggles that he had, and, he was told, through different people that he thought someone else was his mom.
Oh, wow.
And as time went on, he got the relationship with my sister, and he was able to come and visit. But, as he got older, he always still considered another lady who raised him was his mom. But we have a good relationship now.
Oh, good. And how many other children did you have before?
I had 3.
3. And how old were they when you went to prison?
My daughter was 5. My son was 2, and then I had, I want to say about 2-month-old, about a 2-month-old.
And they all went to your sister?
Yeah, they went to my sister.
Okay.
And I remember my sister bringing them up to see me on a family day, and it just killed me because the youngest one at that time, when I left, he was like 2 or 3 months. And he was telling me when my sister dropped them off, because you just drop the kids off at the gate and they come in.
Right.
And he was like, "Who are you, lady? Who are you?" And he just cried the whole time. And I want to say, I think you guys had to come back and get him, right? Yeah, they had to come back and get him because he wouldn't stay.
Wow, I know that have to be rough to be a mom and locked up, and then seeing having a child in prison, and then your other children, then being able trying to stay connected and maintain that relationship.
Yes, it was. I mean, it was really, really hard. And then I just had to kind of really focus and be thankful for the times that they did come to visit me with my children, because there were a lot of young ladies in there who didn't even get to see their children at all.
Wow. So, what has been your greatest challenge as a mom?
My greatest challenge has been being able to come back and try to establish the relationship with my children and try to keep them from making the same mistakes that I did. And although it was really hard trying to raise my boys, because a mother can only do so much when it comes to certain things. Right. But I really thank God that it was just being able to keep them grounded and focused, and they understand where I come from. Right. And and I thank God that they haven't been in the system. Yeah, thank God for that. So let me ask you something. What led you to go to prison? I had made bad choices of selling drugs. Okay. And and I just just being with that wrong type of group, but it's easy to be done when you seeing your friends having this, and you want the same thing, right? And not realizing the repercussions of one day you may get caught, right? And that's what I did. So I kind of that's what I feel bad about, being able, because I had to leave my children behind. But I also want to, think of the positive that I did while in there. I was able to obtain my associate's degree.
All right.
I almost got close to my bachelor's degree, but they felt that criminals shouldn't get an education being in prison, so they closed that system down in prison. So I was 12 units shy of doing that. Wow. So, it was just a blessing. It wasn't all in vain, but I was
took advantage of
of being able to stay focused and know that, I have to turn myself around.
Right. Now, having children and then, getting involved in it. So I want to make this, what you think was motivated you the most to take the risk of being incarcerated? When you say you're selling the drugs and doing drugs.
Well, what made me was due to the lack of, I just seen how we were raised, and we were very poor growing up, but and there was no morals and values that we were really raised on, because my mom, she worked as a maid all her life until I want to say we came to San Diego and she got a better job, but I just wanted my kids to have a better education.
Right.
And so I thought at that time being able to do that would, get them through, but I had to realize it just wasn't the right way. It wasn't the right way.
And so how old were you?
I was 21 when I went to prison.
And what kind of money were you guys making selling those drugs?
I can say I was able to purchase 4 homes.
Wow.
I made anywhere from I remember one day I made about $70,000 in one day.
Wow.
And it is not something to brag about, but I know that I've had plenty of money to where I when I was 21. 1986, I brought me a Rolls Royce. I brought me a Corvette. I brought me a truck, a Mercedes. And like I said, it wasn't. It just wasn't something I'm proud of. Right. But it was just that when you
temptation,
see that,
you have that.
You just. It was fast money.
Make
really
you take
fast
a risk.
Money.
Yeah.
It was fast money.
Yeah, and poverty will do that to you, and it's not just a simple thing of being in poverty and pulling yourself by bootstraps. You don't even have any bootstraps to pull yourself up by, and being young, 21, our mind is not even fully developed until we're 25, and we're not fully grown yet.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to read something and ask you a question, and then I want to get into some more questions with you and Miss Douglas. I want to read some stats to you, and then I want to ask you some questions. With more than 1 million women behind bars or under the control of the criminal justice system, women are the fastest growing segment of the incarcerated population, increasing at nearly double the rate of men since 1985. Nationally, there are more than 8 times as many women incarcerated in state and federal prisons and local jails as there were in 1980, increasing in number from 12,300 in 1980 to 182,271 by 2001. Expanding at 4.6% annually between 1995 and 2005. Women now account for 7% of the population in state and federal prisons. Women of color are significantly overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Black women represent 30% of all incarcerated women in the U.S., although they represent 13% of the female population generally. Hispanic women represent 16% of incarcerated women, although they make up only 11% of the women in the U.S. Among female state prisoners, 2/3 are mothers of a minor child. Over 1.5 million children have a parent in prison. More than 8.3 million children have a parent under correctional supervision, and more than 1 in 5 of these children are under the age of 5 years old. And my source is the ACLU website. So, can you share with us what it is like, to, and I think you talked with us a little bit about that as far as being in prison and having a child that was born in prison, then getting out, and all the things that you went through. But can you, after everything that you've been through and everything that you experienced, what advice can you give to mothers today, black mothers today?
I can give the advice that, no matter how hard it may seem, if we just trust and put our faith in God, He will carry us through.
Yes. Amen.
And I just feel that, that is just that, just having that, thinking that negative, you can't think negative. You have to think positive, and knowing that you can make it. You can make it. And that's what I tell myself all the time. Even when I just start feeling the least of the amount of okay, it wasn't, I just know, and I pray about it. And that's what gets me through. And to the women, I know with our black women, our self-esteem sometimes is way in the gutter. We don't think that much of ourselves, but we, as our black women, if we strive, we can do anything we put our mind to doing.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. Leanne. Yeah.
I just wanted to say,
go ahead.
Kind of being younger, and I don't want to offend you, Pastor Belzer, but myself personally, I've always struggled with religion. I feel like a part of that has been because of losing my father at such a young age, and being able to believe in the unseen and believe that there is a God.
Right.
Having witnessed just so much, just disparity in opportunity and education and pay. And for me, being young and, not necessarily, like I said, being in church with Brandy, except for when she drugged me there. For me, what I try and teach my children, I give them the opportunity of choice. My children do have a Bible study every Saturday. We do, try and get to church with Granny, and I want to let them make their own choice religiously.
Right.
But for me, it's really just, educating your children, and
absolutely.
And today I feel like they are just overexposed to so much in the news and on television, and I really immerse them in education. All three of my children are bilingual. I have a bookshelf that is out of this world, and just teach them, American history, our black history. And just really, give them the opportunity that I wouldn't have had, in my day and age, just, by being educated. And I have all daughters, knowing that, they can accomplish anything. And God is important. I think believing in a creator, which I do, is important. But it's hard for a child to believe in the unseen and to even, necessarily have that hope that this unseen being is going to, guide me and bless me and protect me and give me all of these opportunities. And so really pushing them to try and accomplish all that that they can, and know there's opportunity out there. I work in corporate America, and it's awesome to me when I have clients come into my office and they actually see the Leanne that they've been speaking to over the phone. They're always surprised that she's a black woman. I've sent hundreds of thousands of dollars to this person, never having met with her, and you're Leanne. So just having proper grammar and etiquette and business acumen and knowledge, and just being underestimated, and having the opportunities excuse me, because of education. So I really think that's critical, really pushing your kids to get educated.
Right.
Yeah. And I want to also say to our black women that, just because you have a felony or whatever the case may be, don't let that hinder you.
Right.
Don't let it hinder you, because if you just keep on believing that you will get where you need to be. It's just having morals and values. That's what we all need to have.
And Pastor Belzer, I don't know if you have a website, but I do actually have a list. I have brothers and uncles and cousins that have gone through the criminal justice system, as you said.
Right.
And I have a list of felony-friendly employers, organizations that are actually given stipends from the government to hire our people that have, felony backgrounds. Amazing companies that you wouldn't think would actually hire you. So it is possible, to have a career and to come out and change and, and have the same opportunities that other races do.
Right. And, a couple of things, run to my mind. I'm listening to you all talk, and especially you, Leanne, because your dad, Johnny Douglas, I called him Poochie. So Poochie that was my friend. He's my homeboy. I gang banged all that. So we was in all that together. He was several years older than I was, because me and Kenny, his brother, Kenny Douglas, we're the same age. But I ran with Poochie. We lived together. I was, I think, 17. We got our own place together, things like that. But what I know of Poochie, from the time, of when we were friends, childhood, and growing up to the time he died, and what I know of Poochie, for lack of a better term, he would be proud of you. He would probably be talking about you every day, about his daughter and the accomplishments, things that you have done, and to be able to, as a black woman and a black mother, and to be able to accomplish those things, with, losing a father and remembering that, being, I think, 8 years old, right, and traumatized by that yourself, and being able to succeed in life with all the challenges that black women face, I think is outstanding and great. And so I commend all of you, and I commend you for your accomplishments and so on. And Rachel, I remember, back when you were working for the National Car Rental, and I remember you were still on parole.
Yeah.
I remember how they would try to you would travel somewhere, and they would
yes
get sweated by it going out of town.
I went out of town and at the airport, and a lot of people, I don't know what type of probation I was on, but I showed my ID, and I guess there was some type of alert, so she immediately called the probation officer, and had I not had permission to leave out of town, I would have automatically right then been arrested. Yeah, I just didn't.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I had to have a card where I had to register, almost like what you call a sex offender, but a drug offender, and where they had, anytime I was pulled over, they had any probable cause to search my car.
So now, when you got out of prison, you were able, did you get custody back of your children, or?
Well, I never lost custody because my sister had taken.
Thank God for that.
Yes,
Thank God for this.
Yes, she had taken on that responsibility, but it was just hard getting the relationship because I was gone, and she raised them one way, and coming home, I'm feeling a certain way because I hadn't been in their lives. So I'm trying to not only give them love, but still trying to find a way to say, okay, here, but that wasn't the right way. So it ended up being a beautiful thing, because I tell you that I'm not proud of being in prison, but it taught me so much, and it taught me to be able to be a better mother to my children.
Amen. And that's because I saw that, and I watched you. You were able to get out and get your own place again, and you was working, and I remember seeing the children at the house and everything back in those days, and it just amazes me of what black women and black mothers go through. And Miss Douglas, I know it. For a mom to have to bury a son rather than the son bearing and then dying at such a young age.
That hurt me. That really just destroyed me. But I want to say, like she said, she was selling drugs, which they said my son was drugs and selling drugs and all that. When Poochie came out of school, that's when when he graduated, that's when the trouble started. Well, before he got married and left home. That was it. And I was just blessed not to end up have to pay for what your kids go through. All of them, the minute they turn 18 or 19, that's when they start getting in trouble. And then they start making parents pay for it. But I didn't have to pay for anything what they did, because at that time I just ran K Street. I always said I ran K Street. I took care of it, and that was it. But once they turned 18, they were in trouble,
Yeah.
19.
Yeah, and I remember Miss Douglas when we used to run the streets, hang out. If she saw us walking down the street, she'd stop that car, get out.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
there go Miss Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
So you most definitely wasn't just
Okay.
allowing things to happen and go on. You would
Yeah,
jam us.
I would, because I would go up K Street, and when the minister came out, people say, people are gone crazy, and I get up and go out there and talk with them. But one thing have helped me a lot to get over. I start working with kids. The kids be in the alley. I go up and bring them things and give it to them, and they start open the gate for me, and I get kids together. I know it wasn't too long ago, I went on university. I had maybe about 10 of them. I taken them to the park. I had prayer with them, and I was supposed to start picking the kids up because they need the Lord Jesus.
That's
and if
right.
we show the love and reach out, that's what we have to do.
Amen.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I remember, I think it probably was Easter, Christmas with it, but I remember, you taking us to church and
Yeah.
Poochie and us going to church and stuff, Calvary,
Yeah.
Baptist, back in the days. I remember all of that, growing up and so on. So, the other question I want to ask, so now Poochie, Johnny Douglas did a little time, and Kenny, your other son, Kenny Douglas, he did some time too, right?
Yes, Kenny went to jail a couple of times. But once he got out, he went on and he's a carpenter, he's a welder,
Truck driver.
and now he's driving for Seeds Candy.
Doing
And
trucks
so,
and things like that.
doing very well.
Now, as a mother, and losing your sons to the system and being incarcerated, what was that like?
Oh, it was sad because he was killed and they covered it up. They said it was, he ran from the police, but if they had did the test, the gun powder and everything would have been right there.
Right. So now with Poochie and with Kenny, because Johnny, when he got killed, he had just gotten out of prison. Am I correct? I think he'd been on about a month or at least
I thought he was out a little bit longer than that. They would always pick him up for something.
Violation or whatever.
Yeah, and so that's what happened to him. But I didn't think he was a drug addict. I didn't know it. I was just ignorant. Yeah.
Right. So now, Miss Douglas and Miss Wolford, black mothers face high risk and likelihood of their children being incarcerated, killed, dropping out of school, addicted to drugs, living in poverty. And black mothers, as black mothers, what do you think we can do to change these likelihoods? And Miss Wolford, I'll let you go first, and then Miss Douglas.
For one, I think that more support around, especially to our young men.
Right.
We need more supports to have them, because a lot of people don't understand the piece with African Americans that we have mental health issues that doesn't get addressed.
Right.
And I just feel like even with my own kids, I still struggle to this day because, with my young men, they just, kind of lingered on to where they struggle. They struggle with who they are, and then they have children of their own, but they really don't know how to be the men that they need to be.
Right. Absolutely.
And I just feel like, with that and just having, the right supports to meet their needs. Because as a mother, you can do it, but you still need some additional help with that.
Right. So with all these challenges we see, and Miss Douglas, you've seen a lot. I mean, you come up in the eras of Jim Crowism and racism and so on, and even up to the day. So God has blessed you with a long life. And so what can we do to change these likelihoods of all the risks that as black mother, and you see all the risks that our children face today?
I just think they need the Lord. They need to accept Christ as their Savior. And people, I don't know. I can't even say.
Can I just say too, for me, again, my brother Johnny Douglas. So me and Johnny are my father's only two children, and Johnny is my father's clone. He looks exactly like him. He's big, dark, muscular, just built, and his son is the same way. And it's scary for me just going out with Johnny, and not just because of the police, which they're definitely threatened, just by his aura, but also other black males, going just to the grocery store, and just being a black male and getting looks, and it being unsafe even from your own people, to go out. And so I say just have a respect for life, just have love for one another. We have it hard enough, with, just opposition from other races. And sometimes I feel like we're our own worst enemy. I mean, even for African American women. And Rachel, you're beautiful. I would have never guessed you had a 30-some-odd-year-old child. You can't even say that. You see another black woman and it's like, what are you looking at? And so just having a love for one another, and just not being antagonistic and, degrading each other. I think that's
that's what I was going to say. We tear each other down.
Why do you think that is? I mean, with our black women,
and I'm going to go a little south, but I just feel like, to me, when I've been in situations to where you do the best that you can do, but don't hate on that person. Do what you need to do, and you can do the same thing if you put your mind to it. And I just feel like that we have a lot of the envy of our own people, that you so scared that person is going to get ahead when it don't have to be like that. If we all help build and support each other, we will be in a better position.
See, that's how my sister was, and that's myself. With these kids, I'm going to start back trying to get them together, because once I go out there in the community, it's just a bunch of kids by themselves. And they enjoy when you come up, and I asked them, could I pray for them? And they all came up, and I just want to start taking them maybe to the library, a library that's close around,
I just think, too, I graduated the valedictorian of my class.
What school did you go to?
I actually graduated from Garfield High School, downtown San Diego. My uncle Dathan Willis was murdered, and so I actually got a hardship and was excused from school for 2 years.
Wow.
And because I wanted to graduate in my appropriate year, I went to Garfield and wanted to be able to get credits to graduate on time. And so I did that, but graduating valedictorian, getting tons of grants and scholarships, it was like you think you're better, you think you want to be white, you're just striving to better myself. You met with opposition, and so just knowing that, like you said, Rachel, it is possible. You can do the same thing.
You face it on all ends as a black woman, a black mother. Whether it's in relationships, whether it's economically trying to get a job, whether it's feeling the insecurities of and the unsafeness for raising your children, and what's going to happen to them, being overprotective with that, and so on, and then just with the inner struggles, within the black family.
Yes, and we need to make better choices as women, dealing with who we rather lay down with, whatever the case may be. We need to make better choices. And if you surround yourself with negativity, that's what you're going to get. If you surround yourself with positive people, you're going to get positive outcomes.
All right. Well, on that note, and we thank you all. Thank you, Miss Douglas, Miss Wolford, and Miss Raymond for also sharing with us, because really appreciate that. And we thank you all for being on the show. It's an honor and privilege to have you on. And I'd like to encourage all our listeners, because we was talking about God, and I most definitely, as a pastor, want to invite you to come on out to worship with us at Charity Apostolic Church. On Saturdays, we have service at 11:30 at 610 South 30th Street. And thank you for listening, and tune in next week for another great show on what's happening now, KBLKradio.com. May Yahweh bless you, and we look forward to another great show next week.